The best way to describe what we are going through across the world in the US, the UK, Europe, everywhere it seems, is a crisis. I recently got a book called The Fourth Turning Is Here by an author called Neil Howe. I'd highly recommend that you check out this book. It talks about history, seasons of history, and what we can learn from what we've experienced in the past. What we're going through right now, what he refers to as the fourth turning, is categorized as a crisis. To go back and zoom out, there are seasons in history, usually around about 80 years or so, a generation, where we go through 4 periods of time, roughly around about 15 to 25 years each of these turnings. We go from a high. The last high came on the back end of World War II. It was around about 1946 or so, not 1945. You go through a period of a high. After a high, you then enter the second turning, which is referred to as an awakening. After the second turning, the next sort of 15, 20 years, you then go into an unraveling. And the fourth turning is then a crisis. So number one, just like the seasons, the big kind of takeaway is that what we're going through is not unique in a sense that there's been crises in the past. In years and generations gone by, that has been world wars, really, really bad, obvious times. This crisis that we're in, and according to Neil Howe, it actually started in 2008 when it was the financial crash. And we are now kind of nearly 20 years, coming up to 20 years in this period of time. So the prediction is after this crisis turning, we are going to be entering the new high. To go back to the first turning, what's interesting when I was kind of reading this book, and once again I'd highly recommend that you check it out, is when they were speaking about a crisis and what happens during a crisis and the transition into a brand new high, is everything is changed. Everything is worked through. Everything is evolved into its next new form. So a lot of the times, a lot of the things that people are not very happy with right now, and please contribute down below by commenting, people are not happy with public services, not happy with infrastructure, buses, trains. They're not happy with institutions that are not currently maybe working or fit for purpose, whether that is the healthcare, parts of education. All these kind of infrastructures on a macro global scale, at the end of a crisis, everything is looked at, and not just one thing is changed, but pretty much everything gets changed. It made me think about what the impact that Donald Trump has currently had on the world. Whether you are talking about tariffs, whether you're talking about executive orders, the wave of drastic change, whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it, is being pushed from the likes of the President of the United States right now in Donald Trump. Sorry if there's some background noise. I'm just sat having my lunch and I wanted to share this with you. So what this book refers to is when something is going really, really negatively and not right? Let's say it's your life, you're not happy with your life or your relationships or your health or whatever the case might be. Usually what actually ends up happening is you don't just change one thing, you go to drastically change everything. People say no. People say, I'm not doing this ever again. I quit. People say, yes, I will do this, or no, I will never do this ever again. And on a macro scale, a global scale, this is happening right now. We're in a crisis. This last 10 to 20 years from the global crisis, when you think of the rising costs, you think of inflation, you think of over a decade of the Conservatives, you think of like Labour now in power, you think of the majority of people are disenfranchised, they don't feel connected, they don't feel heard. The amount of people that I've spoken to on the streets, they don't feel like they can trust the governing bodies. They don't feel like they've got the support, the infrastructure, the well-being, the healthcare, the education. Everything is like it appears to be in a crisis. The saving grace, and this is the reason why I wanted to publish this video, is even though things are very, very tough right now and hard right now, and everywhere seems to feel like it's going to shit, what actually is shown over history, over the last, if you go back 100 years, 200 years, every time we've gone through these cycles, which Neil Howe and the author of the book has done really, really well, every time you've gone through a crisis, the world evolves into its next version, where industries and infrastructure and everything is completely changed. Which then makes you think about what has recently happened with Labour. Their manifesto was all about change. But the sentiment that I've seen talking to people on the streets, and I'm sure you may agree with this, there's a big sentiment that people that living in these streets want real change. And that's what usually happens when you go through a crisis and into the new high. Whatever this looks like, whatever this transformational time looks like, what tends to happen is there will be a high again. And the high will go over the next 15, 20, 25 years. And then the cycle will happen again, where it goes into an awakening and it goes into an unraveling. And then in 80 years' time from now again, there'll be another crisis. What that crisis will be, we'll never know. Some of us may know, who knows, depending on how old we get to. But let me know. Have you read the book? Would you describe this as a crisis? And then the saving grace is not just little things are changed, everything is changed. Hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button. I look forward to speaking to you in the next video.